This is Mathuleni Broadcasting Corporation. Inspired to inspire. This is a letter written by Mr. Moses Mzila Ndlovu, the former government minister in the government of Robert Mugabe. It reads as follows. In 1982, I was assaulted by the 5th Brigade. 5 Zimbabwe National Army uniformed young men with red berets at my Luveve house, number 4136, where I lived while I taught at St. Bernard's High School in Phumula. One of the weapons they used besides the gun bus was a homemade metal hammer, whose head looked like the beak of a hornbill, ukoro, with a nut welded to its point to assault me all over the body and in the wanton attack, striking my head for not being fluent in Shona and not knowing my ID number by head, causing me to black out and collapsing, luckily sagged along the wall. They had also accused me of not restraining my Alsatian dogs I had bought from Mr. Hadebe, an education officer who resided in the same neighborhood. They left me for dead after ransacking the whole house, getting off with food from the fridge and some special non-military souvenirs I had brought from Angola and Egypt during my training. Things that had become part of me throughout my years in the armed struggle. As fighters, we did not have many personal belongings. Neither did we want them. I was taken to Galen House for treatment by an MK friend by the name of Bongani after about a week. Treated for visible wounds by the late Dr. Nicholas Ndebele, who then referred me to a specialist called Dr. Cohen, where examinations, including x-rays of the skull, were done and they revealed a star-like depression caused by the attacker's hammer on the skull. Dr. Cohen recommended immediate surgery, but I failed to raise the money beyond my public service medical aid. I have lived with that pain for 42 years and have been getting frequent severe headaches when the weather is extremely cold, as is today, or when it's extremely hot. I had to forego other life needs in order to cover the medical expenses brought upon me by the wretched sons and daughters of sellouts. I was convinced that the ages of those Kukurawundis were mostly under 20 and had never fought in the war, and therefore that their parents were supporters of Smith and Muzorewa. It is the questions and the remarks they made as they interrogated me which exposed their indoctrinated deep tribal hatred. They asked different questions at the same time, clearly not interested in the answers I gave, but accusing me of not answering each question. A few days earlier, they had partly assaulted a now late friend from the war, Stai God knows Mabuza, with the logs, who was diabetic, and couldn't continue starving during the cordon and search operation in Bulawayo, and the dad going to the shops. He came to my house, hardly able to walk, as he couldn't proceed to his brother, Patson Gregory Mabuza's house. I nursed him till he was able to walk under the cover of darkness to his boat. Back in my rural home, Tegwani Mission, almost at the same time, ZANU-PF leaders Enos Nkala, Mark Dube, and Calstas Ndlovu were going to address a rally at South Nata Rural District Council, just across the Tekwane River. The 5th Brigade ferried villagers with Puma trucks from designated points, the same way ZANU-PF is busing people to their rallies this year. My mother, Mrs. Tabulawa Mvangile Mzila Mebakapapi, could not make it to the gathering point on the Tewane Blunt Road. Some 5th Brigade units were rounding up villagers from their homes to maximize rally attendance. When they got to our home, they found my mother alone. She said they asked her why she had not gone to the rally. When she explained that she was disabled by polio at a young age and was in pain from her hip joint, one Kukraundist grabbed the foot of the sore leg and violently twisted it several times, causing a total dislocation at the hip after dragging her for about 50 meters, leaving her wailing and groaning in pain. After learning of her ordeal, I braved the roadblocks, especially the notorious Makaramu shops lay-by in Fig Tree, which had become a killing zone during the clampdown, and went to bring her to Mpilo Hospital. She never recovered and later died from a swollen heart. I promise you, Bakonde Naba, I won't die before justice is done over what happened to you and the many other parents in Matabeleland and the media. My brother Nkosi Mzila was an ex-ZANLA combatant who had joined ZANLA earlier than me and operated mostly in Lupane area. At the integration, he was stationed at Beshnaf Bridge. Same year, he was killed in an ambush near death after he fled with a few of his colleagues from attacks by ZANLA in the National Army at the Beshnaf Bridge base. We buried him in Bulawayo under a tense atmosphere uncharacteristic of a funeral. Uyizele ngekhaya nyalala, mfimandla. Rest in eternal peace, Kumbuzi. I went to look for your daughter. You sired during the operations, took her through school and college, and is a married teacher now. Her maternals aptly called her Tombiyezwe, Mandlovana, and we didn't change that name. The Kukuraundu accused the family of harboring distance. 2 of us out of 5 siblings risked being killed by the secular regime for demanding freedom from the white men to free everyone, including those in ZANU-PF, in an independent Zimbabwe. I demobilized and went back to teaching and furthered my education. To this day, I am being persecuted by ZANU-PF for having fought to free Zimbabwe firstly, and secondly for holding political opinion that is truth-based and exposes ZANU-PF for the wicked organization there. My brother Felix Mzila Ndlovu was severely assaulted at his flat in Makwekwe North in Bulawayo in the presence of his traumatized young children soon after the burial of Mandla Nkosi at Pelendaba Cemetery. Most families in Matabeleland and the Midlands have similar, if not worse, experiences than the Mzila family. Some families have no one to tell the gruesome accounts of what happened to them between 1980 and 1987. The same perpetrators have the guts and shameless faces to come to this region and demand votes. They come to display symbols of their ill-gotten riches. Fat cars, great slay queens, expensive and imported garments, and smooth baby faces, displaying bulgy pot bellies and sausage necks, even at 80, as if they live in another country. Of course, they have their own economy based on the gap between RTGS and the US dollar. How can it be unitary when it has a dual economy? Their coming to the crime scene being Matabeleland is indicative of arrogance that typifies thieves. It is in fulfillment of one murderous Robert Mugabe who said then, the people of Matabeleland and the migrants need proper political orientation, when he was quizzed by a foreign journalist on why he had unleashed such horror on innocent and unarmed civilians. For those people of Matabeleland and the migrants in ZANU-PF, my advice to you is, ungelusi inkomo zalapho okuwendele khona unyoko, ngoba ilifa lelo angeke ulidle. To our young who had not been born, I say never ignore history as told by your own people, preferring to hear the oppressor's account that is riddled with falsehoods. They lie to you because you know nothing else. In short, you are tabula rasa. What is the point of supporting a party that even if you had the best leadership qualities, they would rather be led by an idiot, or even a donkey for that matter, than a person from Matabeleland? To my fellow ex-Zipra combatants, I say, why leave a legacy, ilifa, to your children that hides your heroic deeds in the war of liberation, unless if you were an agent of the Rhodesians? Some of you intimidate the same voters who were brutalized by ZANU-PF during and after Kukurahundi, including yourselves, and you have such short memory spans that you commit yourself to an agenda of your tormentors in exchange of useless money and perishable political power to commit crimes within your communities with impunity. It's not about education, but it's about desperation. My grandmother, Bampembelekwa Skabate, predicted Kukurahundi when she was told that Joshua Nkomo lost the 1980 elections. She had been born in 1880, thereabouts, and died in 2004. She had never seen the doors of school, but was educated enough to put together the pieces of events and correctly predicted a calamity to befall us when Manja and I went to see her for the first time since the war ended. To the genuine ex ZANLA combatants, I say you will never be permanent darlings of this cruel system. I hear now you are derogatorily called Machembere at the Chibugu House to denote that you are spent forces, bunches of expendables. It's a question of time. Wake up and smell the coffee, the njengu. If you love your children and thus the country, ask yourself why you are so skinny, thin, so run down, so sickly, so poor. Your children go into schools that are falling apart, and the clinics that have no medication, as your physical activities in the war are fast catching up with you. Look at Tyson's pictures, even in exile. He is living off the fat of corruption acquired over the years. He has never been smoother. He has a ballooned body that vibrates untrammeled opulence. The same corruption has caused stinking national economic decay as they get richer and richer. Now they invest in real estate in Dubai and other countries without a single gold mine, which hide gold stolen by despotic and corrupt African leaders, especially Zimbabwe, while your families starve. They tell you this, they steal and smuggle gold out of the country in mafia-like syndicates on your behalf. You can only be an insane to believe such nonsense. You tell yourself this is what you fought for. Where is your hard-earned wealth? You have nothing. You don't even have title deeds to the piece of land you call yours, which you have reduced to another reserve because of your poverty. The white man may be on your doorstep in the same way you were on his doorstep to evict him. You will be clueless, sacrificial lambs as the wealth in ZANU join hands with the wealthy white man in partnership to own all the land save your reserve. Why? Because you simply do not think, if this land is your sweat and blood, why should you be poor and be such scum of Zimbabwe? We each live once. Stop being lied to by not so cunning crooks. Your bones will never rest in peace if you allow yourselves to die on the wrong and evil side of life. To my Shona friends and relatives, our relationship cannot be based on my suffering, second-class persons, and that of my children. ZANU-PF arrested my underage children, and through their Shona-speaking militia masquerading as police investigators at Fig Tree Police Station, subjected them to questions that induced a sense of shock, accusing them of having been trained by me while I was held in another room. Who doesn't train their children on how to become good citizens except ZANU-PF, who train theirs on how to steal, murder, maim, and hate? That makes 3 generations in my family abused by ZANU-PF, while they pamper their children with good life from my sweat. Next time you interact with me, show some respect, sensitivity, and empathy to the gross abuse my family has endured under ZANU-PF thugs, ostensible on your behalf. Our relationship must be based on good values and sound beliefs. I expect you to stand for justice, not condemning ZANU-PF in the same breath, insisting that Nika ino haimbofa yaga tongwa nemundevere, or that mandevere are foreigners. Where were they when we fought the white men? Anything less than this, please stay away from me. I will do likewise. Imagine ZANU-PF had done to your mother what they did to my mother on my behalf. Inspired.